my presentation again is on the national air races. And basically we're talking about national air races that were basically held in Cleveland from 1929 to 1949, except for World War II. And then there was a hiatus for a while, and then in 1964, the National Championship air races started up in 64 with the Nevada Centennial, and they ran from then until 2023. And I think in 2022, the Reno airport notified the air races that they were not going to approve having that stead airfield anymore. So 2023 was the end of an era, the final flight there that we had to find a new venue. A little bit about myself. My name is Gary Patzke. I am an author, and NT Bass is my pen name. I got 15 paperback and ebooks up on Amazon. NT Bass with books. You should bring them up. My website is ntbass.net. It's .net. I do have an aviation series where the main character is a pilot. It covers different episodes from aviation. In 1950, he was a stunt pilot. In the early 60s, he was a mercenary pilot in the Civil War in Congo. And my latest one is Racing the Dream, which is about the resurrection of the air show coming out of the hiatus from 60 to 63, leading up to the very first Reno race. I am a pilot. EAA member for a long time, AOPA member for a long time. I got my private pilot certificate at Cleveland Hopkins Airport. Probably dating myself. This is back when runways were still 5 and 2 3. We had a stop run grass north of runway 2 right, which we used for soft field landings. And it used to give the airline pilots a heart attack when they returned base and started heading towards it. I got my instrument rating commercial certificate and flight instructor at Arapahoe County Airport, which is Centennial Airport out in Denver. A little bit of background: the very first air race ever was in Reims, France in 1909. There were over 200,000 spectators that showed up for the 8-day event. 23 different aircraft flew there. And Glenn Curtis set a world speed record of 47.2 miles per hour. Just to give you some idea of the winnings there, Curtis won $7,600 in 1909 money, which equates to $259,000 in today's money. Louis Beloit there in the picture, he's the first one to fly across the English Channel. He won almost $50,000 there. Other early air races are Gordon Bennett Cup. It was a series of cross-country competitions in the U.S., England, and France. They ran 1909 to 1913. They were up there by World War I, and then again in 1920. The Snyder Cup for sea airplanes were for the fastest speeds, and again interrupted by World War I in 1913 to 1914. They picked it up again after the war. They ran it until 1931. The picture there shows Jimmy Doolittle with a Curtiss plane who set the record. Okay, so we talked about the Pulitzer air races for military aircraft. Those ran up through 1925. After that, there was the U.S. trophy races, which ran from 23 and 28. And those were all over the country, from California to New York and the Midwest as well. The first national air race was held in 1929, Labor Day weekend. It was held at the Cleveland Municipal Airport, which was a grass field at the time. There was also an aeronautical exposition downtown at Public Hall in Cleveland. And the picture shows the parade being held on Euclid Avenue leading up to the first exposition day. There were over 500,000 spectators that showed up. There was $80,000 in 1929 prizes, which equated to over $1.4 million for a total prize purse. There were 24 pylon races for military and civilian aircraft. They had 12 cross-country races finishing in Cleveland from Los Angeles and New York coming into the Cleveland area. It was the first women's air derby from Santa Monica to Cleveland cross-country. They had the first women's pylon races. And then event number 26 was called the free-for-run pylon races. And those eventually became known as the unlimited races that we know. There was also military demonstration flights, so there was an air show involved, dirigibles, parachuting, and landing contests. That shows the original poster from the 1929 air races, and the picture shows an aerial view of Hopkins Airport, which was a grass field. The big, I guess, event here was the introduction of the Type R mystery ship. It was designed by the Travel Air Corporation by Herb Rowden and Walt Burnham. They actually kept the design of the aircraft a secret from Walter Beach. They didn't want him knowing that they were working on it. They worked on it after hours and stuff until the very end. And when they got to, even when they got to Cleveland, they kept it under wraps, hangered up, and away from the press. They didn't want any pictures. They didn't want any publicity until they actually flew it. It did win the Thompson Trophy, which is the pylon race in Cleveland, at 194.9 miles an hour. It was piloted by Doug Davis. The most important thing about this is the first time ever a civilian aircraft outperformed a military aircraft. And you can see it was a single monoplane with the right engine in it. Most of the military aircraft were all biplanes at the time. Maximum speed 235 miles an hour, range of 1,300 nautical miles, and a service ceiling of 29,000 feet. The 30s were known as the golden age of air racing. There was one event in Chicago, there were two events in Los Angeles, but most of the events happened at the Cleveland Municipal Airport. You can see by the 37 crowd there, it was very, very popular, very well attended, and the parking lot shows in 1938 just the number of cars that were pulled in there. Some of the most renowned pilots, Roscoe Turner was probably the most renowned pilot. He was a mechanic, wing walker, parachutist, and pilot. He learned to fly balloons during World War I, and then he ran as a barnstormer from 1919 to 1923 in Virginia. He eventually moved west to California and starred in Howard Hughes' Hell's Angel in 1930. He became a chief pilot for Nevada Airlines. And both governors of California and Nevada appointed him as a colonel. Somehow, I didn't know what the official designation was, but he was well known as a colonel. And he was quite a showman, and so whenever he showed up at the air shows, he always dressed up in uniform to promote that. He also raced, or was sponsored by Gilmore Oil, which is essentially a local. But their mascot was a lion called Gilmore. And as you can see from the top photo, he always traveled with his showmanship act. He was a three-time winner of the Thompson Trophy. Again, that's the pylon race. The Bendix Trophy is the cross-country race from California to Los Angeles. He won that in 1933 at 214 miles per hour. His total winnings for the 1930s from the air show was over $1 million in 2024 valuation. He flew a Wheeler Williams 44, designed by Weddell Williams. He won the trophy 33 and 34. He piloted it, and James Weddell also piloted it. He was the Bendix Trophy winner in 32, 33, and 34. Just won by a couple of other folks, Doug Davis from the Mystery Ship pilot, and Jasper Haslett also flew it. At 1,000 horsepower Pratt & Whitney engine, maximum speed of 325 miles per hour. The range was 900 miles per hour, and service ceiling of 14,000 feet. Other famous airman there was Jimmy Doolittle. He was a military aviator, a four-star general. We all know pretty much about him. He actually got his pilot's license from the Army Signal Corps in 1918. 1918. He didn't serve in the combat zone, but he was an instructor pilot and test pilot during the war. He had a master's degree and PhD in aeronautics from MIT, not too shabby. And he won the Schneider Cup race that we talked about at 232 miles per hour in 1925. He flew the very first instrument flight in a totally enclosed cockpit at Mitchell Field, but Mitchell Field on Long Island in 1929. And he was awarded the Medal of Honor for the B-25 raid on Japan. As an air racer, he won the Bendix Trophy, 223 miles per hour for $155,000. He won the Thompson Trophy winner the next year, 250 miles per hour at $103,000. He also set a dash record of 296 miles per hour in 1932 as well. He flew the GB Model R. It was built by the Granville brothers out of Springfield, Massachusetts. And he had won the Thompson Trophy, 252 miles per hour. That's, again, the pylon race. And set a world speed record at 296 miles per hour. Had an 800 horsepower engine, the maximum speed of 219 miles per hour. It cruised at 260 miles per hour, and it had a stall speed of 90 knots. And it was a very difficult plane to fly. You can see the pilot was way in the back, right by the vertical stabilizer. So the controls were very small, very difficult to fly, so it's a testament to his skills as a pilot. Jackie Cochran also raced in the national air races. She was an aviator and an entrepreneur. She had a commercial and airline transportation license. She was the president of the 99s from 41 to 43. She was also the World War II head of the Women's Air Force Service Pilots. And those were the women who flew planes from the manufacturing site to airfields in the United States. Sometimes they carried them across the Atlantic Ocean. In 1980, as of 1980, she held more speed, altitude, and distance records than any other male or female pilot in aviation history. And she was the first woman to break the sound barrier. And you see her picture there with Chuck Yeager. She won the Bendix Trophy in 1938, collected $200,000 for that. She's one of 3 women in the McRobertson air races in 1934, and she was the winner of 5 Harmon Trophies, which are awarded to outstanding aviation, aviatrixes, and aeronautical pilots around the world. So she won 5 of those. Chief Louis Tversky, P-35, Farmingdale, New York, and this plane actually won the Bendix Trophy 3 times, 37 through 39. She piloted it once, and Frank Fuller piloted it the other 2 times. Had a maximum speed of 290 miles per hour at 12,000 feet, range of 950 miles, and a service ceiling of 31,000 feet. As we talked about before, the golden age of air racing was interrupted by World War II in 1939 or 1940. It ended. They picked it up again in 46, ran it from 46 to 49. These were all in Cleveland at the time, and so this part of it became known as the Cleveland National Air Races at Hopkins Airport. It's always Labor Day weekend, and that's when they have their air show now. In 1949, Bill Odom, racing in the Unlimited series, did crash in Reno, which is the town in the center of the air track there. He did kill a woman and their young child. Most people think that the air races were canceled because of that. But the fact is they were planning on having a 1950 air race. But world events in the war in Korea caused that one to be canceled. And after that, they never tried to reorganize the national air races as such. Paul Mance was probably the most famous pilot there. He was a Hollywood stunt pilot, known mainly for that. He was going to get his pilot's license in the Army Air Corps. He was just about to get collected, and he buzzed a train out in California. Protests for the to the back of the training division, called him out on it, and they never gave him the pilot's license in. But he did get it. He set a record of flying 46 consecutive outside loops in 1930. That'll give you vertigo, right?
Yeah.
So, he wanted to get into being a stunt pilot, but he didn't have a Associated Motion Picture Pilot union card, which is what you needed. But he ended up being in Galloping Ghost in 1931. He got a card after that, and then he actually was in 52 different movies as a stunt pilot. He was Amelia Earhart's instructor and technical advisor, and gave her instruction in flying the Electra. After World War II, he bought 475 World War II warbirds for $55,000. So he collected them and he sold them off to different people. He kept B-25 and some other aircraft for his movie stunt work, and I think he kept 4 or 5 P-51s. He did die filming the flight of the Phoenix on the second take, trying to film the takeoff of the airplane. He was a Bendix Trophy winner in 46, 47, and 48. He was going to do it again in 49, but they talked him out of it to give somebody else a chance. His total winnings for those 3 races was $1.7 million. He flew a P-51 Mustang. You can see his fastest time there was 460 miles per hour. Standard specs on P-51, 437 max speed at 25,000, 1,600 mile range and 41,000 feet for service seal. Cook Cleveland was another Bendix Trophy winner racer. He was in the Navy in World War II. He flew Vindicators and SPDs. Even though he wasn't a fighter pilot, he actually shot down 5 enemy aircraft, so he was a Navy ace, and he was also awarded the Navy Cross. He owned Euclid Avenue Airport in Cleveland, where I'm from. He was a Thompson Trophy winner in 47 and 49. He flew a Corsair. His was built by Goodyear, pictured up there at the top. And his speeds were 396, 397 miles per hour. Cruise speed on those things, 431 miles per hour. Range of 1,900 miles. And service ceiling of 38,000 feet. Now we're here with the Air Force, we'll talk about Steve Wigman. His very first air race was in Milwaukee in 1926. Ironically, he got his pilot's license in 1928, signed by Orville Wright. So 2 years later, he got his pilot's license. The main reason was he had some kind of herpes eye infection, and he wasn't quite certain he'd be able to be a pilot, but he was able to get a medical certificate and then got signed off by Orville Wright. He was the Oshkosh Airport manager 1931 to 1969. He did set a 100-kilometer speed record at 238 miles per hour in 1937. He competed in the Thompson, Formula One, and Formula E races throughout the years. He retired from racing in 1989 at 85 years old. He raced in the Thompson races in 35 through 46. He was a Continental Trophy winner in 49 and 52, and he was the Regat Trophy winner in 50 and 51. His most famous plane is Bonzo II. He did have another airplane that he flew in the national air races in the Thompson Trophies, Bonzo I, and then he named it after one of his favorite cartoon characters. But he resurrected it in a Formula One version, and it debuted in 1948, and it raced continuously through 1973. Again, he won the Continental Trophy race in 49 and 52, Regat Trophy winner again. He won two hometown races here at Oshkosh in 56 and 58, and in the 1950s, he won 3 more races during that time. Formula One racers usually have a Continental 85 engine. When those went out of production, the rules committee allowed the 0200 engine to be used as a replacement. And he put one into the Bonzo II in 1969. Max speed of 240 miles an hour, range of 520 miles, and an empty weight of 580 pounds. I talk about the Korean War interrupting the national air races. The only activity after that was the midget air racing. That class of aircraft first competed at the Cleveland National Races in 1947 and continued racing from 47 to 2023. So it's the longest series of racers that have been in the U.S. It was originally sponsored by Goodyear, so they're called the Goodyear races. And they put up a prize purse of $350,000. After they backed out, Continental was the sponsor for them, so the Continental races, and then it eventually evolved into being Formula One. They raced from 1950 to 1960 throughout the U.S. with different organizations putting on the events. The big thing was Tom Cassett in 1951 came out with what's called the Cassett Special. And the reason he did that was to try to encourage people to build the aircraft, to race, to promote the races. And he sold the design for like $20, just so anybody could get it and build it themselves. After 1960, there was a 3-year hiatus here, where basically air racing in the United States was pretty much belly up. There was just nothing going on at that time. Some of the race winners during the 1950s, Steve Whitman had 7 wins, Carol Falk and Rivets, he had 6, and Bill Brennan and Buster had 5 wins during the 50s. Bill Stead, he came from a flying family. His father was an Air Corps pilot, his brother was a fighter pilot during World War II, and he got his license through the Army Air Corps during World War II. He wanted to be in the flying part of it, but they had him, for some reason, testing ski equipment for 2 years until they could transfer in. He didn't serve in the Pacific or Europe. He flew rescue missions out of Panama. Ironically, he was a hydroplane champion in 1958 and 1959 as well. He was always enamored with the Cleveland National Air Races, the National Air Races, and he is really the driving force that wanted to bring them back after the shutdown in 1949. And he worked it out so that they did it in celebration in 1964 of the centennial, Nevada centennial for becoming a state. The first 2 races were held at Sky Ranch Airport, 64 and 65. Out in Nevada, there's really no grass strips, so it was more of a dust strip, which kicked up a lot of dust from the airplanes taking off, caused some issues with the unlimiteds. But 80,000 people attended the first event. He also worked it out so the thing was televised on ABC Wide Global Sports. And that caused a controversy because they wanted to see the planes taking off, for the races. The unlimiteds didn't like it because of all the dust. So they did work it out for the races. They took off from Sky Ranch, but then they landed over here at the regular airport. In 1966, the event moved to Stead Field, which was that's a U.S. Air Force base that got decommissioned. It was named for his brother who was killed in a P-51 crash. And they ran races from 1964 until 2023. That's Bill in his hydroplane vest. And he did race himself. He raced Cosmic Wind in the Formula One version. He also owned a Stearman, Smirnoffs, which won the first race. In the first national championship air races, there were 4 classes of competitors. There was the Formula One biplanes, which ran on about a 3-mile course, which is the red course. They also had a women's stock plane race where they flew Piper 180s in the pylons. That continued until 1968 when all of the other organizations elected to allow women to fly into their pylon races. So that discontinued after 68. And then the last one was the unlimited track, which flies an 8-mile course, which is the black circle. Along the way, they added different classes of racers. T6 was added in 1968. They flew a 5-mile course. The sports class, which is all kit-built aircraft, came on in 1998. They flew about a 7-mile course. Jet class came on in 2000. They flew an 8-mile course similar to the Unlimiteds. In 2021, they started a STOL drag race, which is actually, it's a 2,000-foot track. If you can see, it's the red line at the bottom, just on the other side of the airport there. Basic most of the national championship air racing timing laps are done on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Then after that, your speed and position in the heat races determine your starting point. They use air starts for unlimited jet, T6, and sport class races. They do a racehorse start for Formula One biplane where they start all on the runway and do a takeoff in formation. Passing is only allowed on the outside, and a passed aircraft is not allowed to impede the person coming around them. Cutting a pylon results in a 2-second per lap penalty unless you're forced inside by the aircraft being passed. Minimum altitude is pylon height, so the cockpit of the aircraft has to be above the pylon there, and that's 50 feet high. They also started what's called pylon racing school in June, so if you actually want to compete, you have to go there and get your credentials to participate. The Formula One class of aircraft, I'll talk a little bit about the races. These are all home-built aircraft. Originally started with a C-85 engine, and went to the O268. You have to have a minimum of 66 square feet of wing area, fixed propeller, non-retractable gear, and a minimum weight of 500 pounds. Some of the leading racers at Reno were Ray Cody and Shoestring, pictured up above there. John Sharp in Nemesis, he designed that with a laminar flow wing, which became quite innovative, and he dominated with 9 wins in that aircraft. Gary Hubler and Mariah, Steven Senegal and Endeavor had 5 and 6 wins there. I have Bill Falk up here in rivets. He never won in Reno because his aircraft was too heavy to compete at the 5,000 foot elevation. But everywhere else, he was a dominant force in Formula One, in Cleveland, and Miami, Fort Lauderdale. So he had 22 total Formula One wins. Sport biplane class, you're required to have a 75-foot wing with 30% of the area of the wing has to be on the smaller blade. 180 horsepower engine is the largest engine you can have. Again, it's fixed propeller, non-retractable gear. And again, 500 pounds of minimum weight. Tom Haverly in Phantom, picture at the top, he had 11 wins. Don Beck in Miss Lake Tahoe at 5, and then Pat Hines and Sundancer at the bottom, he had 5 wins as well. 1968, we saw the T class come on board. It's good for AT-6s, Harvards, and SNJs. This is basically a stock aircraft competition. You can't modify the airframe, you can't change out the engine, which is a 650 horsepower radio engine. You can tape off any kind of openings to smooth the drag on it, and you can do what they call blueprinting the engine, which allows you to go and balance the pistons, polish the heads, cylinders, blowers, carburetors, to get the maximum horsepower out of the engine. Leading race winners, A. Van Fossen had 7, Dennis Bune, Midnight Miss up top at 6, Nick Macy and Chris Rushing both had 5 wins, and that's 6 cat there. The sport class came out in 1998. These are all kit-built aircraft. Basically, the only requirement is you get a 650 cubic inch engine, and in order to race, pilots have to have 500 hours in type in order to be in a competition. Jeff Lavelle had 5 wins in number 39, not named. Derek Remeyer, Lancair Legacy, 4 wins, and David Morris in Lancair 4 had 3 wins. Jet class came on board in 2000. Very few requirements. There's a 525 mile per hour maximum speed allowed on the course. and you can have 18 degrees of wind sweep max on the airplane. And each airplane has to have $1 million of liability insurance in the race. Kurt Brown and Viper had 5 wins up top. Rick Adams and American Spirit 4. And Pete Saganino, who's just lucky, had 3 wins. We talk about the Stoll Drag. It's a unique kind of competition. They have a 2,000-foot runway, a straight runway. From a standing stop, they take off, fly 2,000 feet, land beyond the white chalk line, and try to stop as quickly as possible, turn around, and if they don't stop, they're disqualified, and then they race back the other way. There's only been 2 winners, Toby Ashley and Steve Henry, since they started that up. And then the premier class is the unlimited class of airplanes. They're all piston engine, propeller driven. They have to be capable of pulling 6 Gs. And beyond that, pretty much anything goes. You can modify the airframe, you can modify the engine, you can use any kind of exotic fuel you want. You can dump nitrous into the carburetors with a fuel injection, which you're not allowed to do for T6 or Formula 1. You'll notice that there's a lot of different pilots flying the same airplanes. There's not a lot of unlimited airplanes out there. So Steve Hinton and Bill DeStefani both won Strega. They would just trade it off depending on the owners. 9 wins, 7 wins. Daryl Greenemeier and Smirnoff 7 wins. Lyle Shelton and Rare Bear had 6 wins, and then Skip Holm and Dago Red had 5. And these are some of the main unlimited racers. We've got Dago Red and Strega on the P-51s. Strega has a asterisk at 491.822 miles per hour. That's the Reno course record. Rare Bear is a Grumman Bearcat, 489, and that's a Hopper Sea Fury Dreadnought at 456. We talked about the fact that 2023 was the final race in Reno. I wanted to mention the United States Air Racing Association. And the reason is that they were instrumental in bringing air racers back to Cleveland during their Labor Day air show. It was run by Gary Baker and Jack Niska. Just real quick, Jack became a close friend of mine. He lives in Bay Village, which is a suburb of Cleveland. He ran the races for years and years. He helped me write the book, with a lot of insights into organizing the races, flying the races, and just all kinds of information on how that all works, especially Formula 1 races. He did the first Cleveland race in 1968. Bill Falk, that we mentioned in grades, he won the race. Downey and Old Tiger came in second, and Steve Whitman came in third in Bonzo. There was a short hiatus from 72 to 77, and the U.S. Air Racing Association came back in 77, and they ran a 50th anniversary race in 1979. And during that race, there were over 27 F1 racers from 14 different states. Bob Moeller won the Formula 1 in Blu-ray, which is pictured there, and that's actually in Cleveland, looking back at downtown. That aircraft was built by Gary Baker. That was his aircraft. He had gotten killed in an airplane crash at Mansfield. But Bob won it at 230 miles per hour. And Steve Whitman won the Formula V in Buster, which is another one of his airplanes that he designed, at 166 miles per hour. Air racing is a dangerous sport. There's always been some crashes there. Galloping Ghost was an unlimited crash and killed a number of people in the stands. 2020, there was a jet crash in the back straights up there. Last year, in the cool-down lap, there were a couple of T6s that crashed together. And I guess that entered into the fact that Reno kind of said, hey, we can't, with all the growth out there and housing and stuff, that we can't approve the races continuing there. So that was 2023, it was the final flight in Reno. The organization did announce that they intended to find a new venue for the races. And I think they looked at six finalists, like Casper, Wyoming, Pueblo, a place in California, another place maybe in Kentucky or something like that. But they did announce recently, I think within the past 2 or 3 months, that they will race in 2025 in Roswell, New Mexico, the Roswell Air Center. So this time there's only a 1-year hiatus. Again next year. So looking forward to that. And if you have any questions, we'll do our best to try and answer them. Help you out at all? Yeah.
As a child, I remember reading something about an air racing circuit for aircraft powered by Volkswagen engines. Do you have any information on that?
That's the Formula V version. They run those with Volkswagen engines.
How long did they run? Where did they run?
They ran mostly when they picked it back up in the 60s, and they were running. I'm not sure when they ended. But that was one race. The U.S. Air Racing Association, they had a Formula V version. And as you can see, Steve Whitman won it at the 50th anniversary. Anything else? Yeah.
Have you heard of other sport class races other than just Roswell? Without limits?
I haven't heard of any. I think there is a sport class racing association that's put. I'm not sure where else they've had it. I think what they're trying to do is, with the kit planes and the speeds, because they're pushing 400 miles per hour. They're going pretty darn quick. I think that's kind of as the unlimited warbirds kind of peak out, that they're going to have something coming behind that. And I really think that's why they brought that on board. Yeah.
Is there any classes, is this all pretty much a male-dominated sport? I read earlier books about in the 30s, like women, like Amelia Earhart and other people race, but are women involved in this sport? And how do they compete in today's races?
Well, as I said, in 1968, all of the organizations, Formula One, biplane, removed the restriction from women being in pylon races. So they didn't have to have separate races, just for that, which was the stock plane races. They would fly, Pipers or, Bonanzas in pylon races until '68. After that, they were definitely allowed in. I know there was a 3-time winner in the biplanes, a woman pilot for the biplanes at Reno. Jackie Cochran raced the Bendix race. And after that, I'm trying to think of her name. There was another famous woman pilot. She raced in Formula One and T6 and Formula V. So there were a number of women that did race, nowhere near the number of men, but they were active in the racing. Anything else I can help with? But I really want to thank the EAA for inviting me up here. I kind of, I wrote the book about air racing there, and kind of sent them a request saying, hey, I could give a presentation on it. They agreed, and it's great. So I appreciate them inviting me and letting me come up here. If you want to take a look at the book or anything, or if you got to answer any questions, just let me know.
Yeah, just a question. So, like back in the heyday of Cleveland Air Race and stuff like that, what kind of a crowd did they draw on those kind of events?
In the 30s, it was like 500 people coming to the races over the course of the event. It was a lot of people.
Like for one day
for the entire event. Now I don't know if that's
multiple days.
Yeah, it's multiple days. Like I said, it's usually Thursday through Sunday. Over the Labor Day weekend. So total attendance was in the 500,000 people. Quite hot.
That's very big.
Thank you. Anything else? If you help with? Yeah, I appreciate you coming. Have a great time.